Hi, welcome to Rooms with Ronald. I'm Ronald Harrington, and I'm the host of Rooms with Ronald. Now, if you've been following along over the last couple months with Rooms with Ronald on LinkedIn, usually I started out with saying, Hi, welcome to the March edition of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. Wow, I did not do that this time. And there is a very special reason why. I did not say what month it is. Rooms with Ronald is elevating its brand and it's becoming a podcast. I am so excited to announce that I have partnered with the Multifamily Media Network to launch Rooms with Ronald, the podcast. Now, you're probably thinking, what does this mean for the content that we've been putting out? This allows us to expand our brand. So, on LinkedIn, the videos can only be 10 minutes or less. So, with this podcast, we are shooting for a 30-minute episode. Now, here's the best part of it. Not only are you going to get to hear from me, as you have been, and you've been following along, you're also going to get to hear from other industry leaders. I am so excited that we will be releasing 3 podcasts a month. The first one will talk about Rooms with Ronald, what I've been doing, the shops, all of that great content that you get to know, but it's also going to get to be elevated. And I can have more in-depth conversations and really dig into the stories. Now, the other 2 podcasts I'm on is going to be more of like Rooms with Ronald and guest. So we're going to get guests lined up from all aspects of the industry, from the on-site level to the corporate level and all that. Because for me, it's super beneficial to have the on-site level voice heard. I can tell you what I think leasing is and what leasing means. And, guests at the corporate level can come in and tell you about all the great things that their teams are doing. But I want to have an authentic voice. I want the boots on the ground. I want people who are living this day in and day out to come on and talk about their experience. They might have a really great idea that they've incorporated that you can take back and incorporate in your teams. Now, not only will Rooms with Ronald be able to talk about leasing in this new podcast, we're going to get to talk about marketing and all of those aspects. I already have a long list of names of people I'm so excited to reach out to and get the ball rolling on having them come in. So that's what the new elevated versions of Room with Ronald's going to look like. But if you're new and this is the first time that you've heard of Rooms with Ronald, let me tell you how it started. So picture it. For all of those, I'm a Golden Girls fan, so I just had to throw that in. But it's a great closing technique too, right? So picture yourself. So last year, I was working for a company and we had created a whole new experience team. And so I was like, oh, I was a sales trainer before, I was teaching leasing, and then this new experience team came about. And we were really looking at how can we elevate the experience of our prospects, of our residents. And so I decided, being me, to say, hey, boss, I want to shop 100 different apartment communities across the nation. And what I thought was going to come back and say, that's a crazy idea. We can't do it. It was met with open arms. And that's a brilliant idea. I'm so excited for you to go across this journey. So then, like, the kind of the reality set in, right? Of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to shop 100 different apartments across the nation. So I didn't get started right away. And my boss came back and she said to me a couple months later, how's the shops going? And I was like, I haven't started. She goes, oh, I thought you would be done by now. And I was like, oh, well, I haven't started. Part of it was fear of like, what do I want to look at? What's the data? I mean, I knew what my end goal was, but what data do I want to look at to get to the end goal? So I started the first 3, and I said to myself, as those first 3, what am I going to do to hold myself accountable? Because those first 3 experiences were horrible. And this is totally going to be the same thing, right? Like, I can't do this 97 more times. So I got this brilliant idea, as much as I love video, to say to myself, Ronald, why not make a video and put it on LinkedIn and share these findings in hopes to inspire change in the industry? Be that advocate for the leasing teams. Be the agent of change and say, this is what I'm seeing. Here's what we can do to fix it. So that's kind of how Rooms with Ronald came about. So I thought I was just going to throw up a little video on LinkedIn, and no one was going to care. No one was going to comment, but it was just a way to hold me accountable. Boy, was I wrong. Here's what happened. I threw up the video and people started liking it and people started sharing it. And then companies got involved and companies wanted to talk to me about the experience. And I was just like, oh, I did not know that this was going to be a thing, right? Well, I didn't know. I was just like, oh, let me just up this video and that's what's going to happen. But it inspired so many people to come on and say, hey, I want to shop people. You inspired me to go shop my people, or you inspired me to check out my technology, which definitely was something new for me, which is not what I was expecting. So it was super cool. And I had conversations. And then, kind of as the months went on, people would check in with me and they would say, how are your shops going? How many are you at? What are you seeing? So we completed all 100. Not only did we complete all 100, we are overachievers here with Rooms with Ronald. So we completed 101 shops. If you've been following along on my journey, you know that was a big feat for me. And I was unsure at some point if I was even going to get to there. But we did it. And we did it with big numbers. We shopped 13 different states, 28 different cities, different metros across the country. And I shopped 88 different apartment communities. And let me tell you, the experience was not good. Not good at all, And so when I created this 100 shots, my goal was to compile all the data, look at it, analyze it, and then submit an NAA proposal to speak at Apartmentalize. Which, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a chance to speak. Never did I think that this session was going to get accepted, and it did. So we are proud to say Rooms with Ronald is coming to Apartmentalize. We will be called Leasing Across America, Insights and Impacts from 100 Shops. And I have two amazing co-panelists, and I was very strategic with who I picked. So I have Stephanie Anderson with Grace Hill. For those who don't know, Grace Hill has the Validate Mystery Shop. They also recently acquired Ellis, so they have that data. And then Christy Ficker is with RealLink, and she has like that virtual side and where virtual leasing's going. So all of this together is going to give us a real great landscape of, what's leasing looking like? We have all the shop data. So our shop's still a thing. We have my experiences, and that's either going to align with what the data says, or we're going to have some healthy debate on stage. And then Christy's going to come in and say, here's what virtual's doing, and here's where we need to be. So when I put it together and we got accepted, I was thinking to myself, what is 2024 going to look like for Rooms with Ronald? Like, this is a brand that people want to hear from. So I've decided that Rooms with Ronald is going to be bigger and better than it ever was before. I mean, I thought I went leasing across America last year. I decided I wanted to look at telephone shops and what the telephone calls are like, which I know sounds super crazy to some of you, right? You're like, the telephone's dead. It's not. I can tell you where I currently work as a training manager at Haven Residential, the shop's not dead. Like, there are people calling all the time to different apartments. So I want to look like, are people answering the phone? Are people, being friendly? Are they asking for the appointment? What's that like? How long are phone calls now? I have an idea that I think top performers are probably around the 8-minute mark. I feel like you can build a lot of connection in those 8 minutes. And I feel that your low performers are probably more in the 2 to 3 mark. And that's being generous sometimes, right? We all have those people. So I want to see what that looks like. And then I want to see how they handle the objection, right? I want to see what happens if I can't come tour that community. Obviously, I can call all 50 states. I can't travel to all 50 states with a full-time job. I would love to. Don't get me wrong. I wish that could be my full-time job where I just traveled and traveled and traveled and I shopped all the apartments, right? But I can't. But I can call and I can say, oh, I can't make it to physically come tour. What virtual options do we have? So I want to look at that experience and kind of how they handle that, which is going to be unique, right? Because there's going to be a wide variety of technology that people are going to be using. Maybe it's videos. Maybe it's an actual live virtual tour. So I want to really like hone in and kind of find the data and the sweet spots of what's really going on. Because let's be real, it's 2024. We need to be meeting renters where they're at. I want a virtual tour. I should be able to take a virtual tour. I want an in-person tour. I should be able to take an in-person tour. I want a self-guided tour. I should be able to go take a self-guided tour. There are such a wide range of renters out in the marketplace right now that we have to meet them where they are. People have been doing this all the time. So that's kind of what the 2024 Rooms with Ronald is going to look like. And you're going to get this once a month, just like you have been, where we have these dialogues and I dive in. But the other 2 months are really going to be special with the guest. On this podcast, we're going to talk marketing and what's the marketing trends. Now, let me tell you a funny story about marketing and Ronald here. So when I was at a company, we had sales training and then they moved us to the marketing team. We met with our new boss and I said, hey, I'm a trainer. I'm a sales trainer. I'm not a marketing person. That's not who I am. I'm a sales trainer. So we're going to have to work around that. And we started talking and we started digging into the data and things like that. And, I just started spitballing ideas. And the VP of marketing was my boss and she said, Ronald, you are a marketing person. I'm like, no. Marketing is like building websites. It's, PPC campaigns. It's designing flyers. I have no design capabilities at all. Like I just cannot design anything to save my life. She's like, no, marketing's so much more than that. Marketing is lead generation, lead ideas, fun things. Like what you're doing is marketing. Marketing is innovation. And so now I'm a marketing person. I would have never thought that I would be sitting here today telling you that I'm a marketing person when it comes to those types of things, because I had a misconception of what marketing is, which ties right back into Rooms with Ronald, the podcast, right? That's why it's so important that we talk to these on-site team members. And so they can get an idea of who we are and what we're doing and that kind of thing. We need them to understand the different roles that they can play in our organization. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I don't think a lot of people really hone in on these people. So I want them to understand that there's different paths, right? And I think this is a great platform to introduce, different companies to what other companies are doing. No longer is it the days of, here we go, we have to have a leasing agent has to become an assistant manager who has to become a property manager to a regional manager, right? There are so many technologies out there that we can allow our teams to really shine and grow as, individuals. And we have to look at those paths. And I think that's the glory of this day in technology. Because I can tell you, I followed that path early on in my career. I was a horrible system manager. Horrible. Like, I didn't like having the rough conversations, right? I mean, I remember like someone telling me, oh, I can't pay my rent this month because my grandma died. I'm like, well, how many grandmas do you have? Because this is the fourth grandma that has died. I just did not like having this conversation. I was a salesperson. I like to be fun and I like to bring, the joy and have friendly conversations and all of that. Tough conversations was just not my strong point. And I feel like we find a lot in this industry that that's what happens, right? We find out that the great leasing professional does not make a great assistant manager. Not all, but most don't, right? Because they're two totally different personality types that it takes for that. So, we want to have those conversations. I can't wait to dive in with that. I want to hear how community managers interact with their team, how they hold them accountable. So, some fun stories is I have a master's degree in property management. Not a lot of people do. And so after my graduation in 2019, I joined a company and I was a traveling floating community manager and I went to sites that were struggling. And I would fill in for sites as managers, but I would also help in any office position. We had a large community here in Indianapolis, almost 1,300 units, and that was kind of like my home base. So when I wasn't traveling, I would go help lease there. And then, we did a train the trainer and I had to talk about leasing and they realized that, oh, he's a great trainer. So that's kind of how I embarked into the training arena. But he also was really good at leasing. So I then became the leasing and training manager for this company. And I still got to travel across the country and train leasing professionals and do all that fun stuff. And then COVID happened and we kind of like shut down and everyone was scrambling for this virtual, like, what does this virtual leasing look like? So that's kind of where Rooms with Ronald in its original form originated at. I was going to these properties, I was doing virtual tours, I was recording the videos. Sometimes I was in the video, sometimes I was doing a walkthrough and I was narrating and I kind of like picked up my craft as I went, right? Because I can tell you the first virtual videos that I did were not good. They were unstable. We were all figuring out, and I'm sure some of you on this podcast are listening thinking, oh my God, mine were neither. And just like this is the first podcast, and it's only going to get better because as you do things, you find your rhythm. So the goal was I was going to introduce the hottest 2-bedroom in whatever market I was in. We didn't end up not going with that idea, but the Rooms with Ronald name kind of just stuck with me. But I started to lease up these properties and I would get sent to properties that were struggling in leasing. Like, they were a brand new lease up. They needed 14 leases a week to meet occupancy and they were trailing 2 to 3 at the time. And I always got sent, I always would tell my boss, you want me to do how many leases in the time I'm there? Do you not realize that the number saying they've only done this many? Well, every time I would pull it out. And so it finally became like, Ronald, what's the secret sauce? Like, what are you doing when you're at the sites? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, well, you're getting these leases, you're filling them up. And so, like, there's 3 components to me being successful. The first one is I am super competitive. I mean, I am probably more competitive than anyone you know. So when I first started in the industry in 2014, we used Lead to Lease as our, kind of lead management. And the thing I loved about Lead to Lease is that there was a competition chart in there. So like you got points for every tour you took, points for every lease that you got signed, points for everything, right? And I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I would do, I would grab my phone, I would grab my computer, I would log on to Lead to Lease, and I would look to see where I ranked in the company standings. And month over month, I was always number one because I was just that competitive. So that has kind of stuck with me. So as soon as the lead comes in, I will know on the dashboard. I know how many, you know, unreviewed things I have on my dashboard, how many people I need to contact, all of those things I always know. And I instill that when I'm teaching leasing professionals what they need to know. You should know the number and you should want to jump on it and you should want to be the first point of contact because statistically, the first person who contacts them is going to get the sale. So I wanted to be it. Not only would I call them, I would send them a text message. I was constantly there. So that was the first sauce, right? Was just being the first to respond. The second sauce was the continual of the follow up. I didn't get you the first time, I'm going to follow up with you. And it wasn't one of those follow ups that was like, hey, Ronald, thanks for your interest in ABC Apartments. I'm so excited you're looking for a new home. Let me know how I can help. Or, hey, just checking in, wanted to see how the apartment search was going. If you have any questions, let me know. No, that wasn't the type of follow up that it was. That type of follow up to me is quantity, meaning I am following up because the system's telling me to, or my boss is telling me to. I have no information to add to you. I have no value to add to this email. You're not going to read it. You're not going to want to call me back. No, what I did is I did quality follow ups, meaning I could tell the area code. Maybe it wasn't the area code of the city I was in. And that's how I connect with people all the time because I do travel so much as I know area code. So if you were to call me from a 916 number, I know that's Sacramento. So I know we're going to talk Sacramento. I'm going to tell you my favorite place to eat. If you call me from 917, I know that's New York City. We're going to, I know we're going to talk New York City. 303 is Denver. 512 is Austin, right? So that's instantly how I help people. And I would say, hey, I see your phone number is from whatever city it's from. Are you moving to this area? Oh, I'm sure that's stressful. Well, here's where our location is. And let me give you a map of the area that highlights some of my favorite places you can go. Ooh, now I've added value to their email and I've done something for them. People want to feel special. They want to know that you've done something for them. You could do it for everybody, right? You could have this standard, but now they're going to feel like you've done it. So that was one way. The second way, I wouldn't let you out the door if you weren't going to apply. I would ask you, are you ready to apply? And it was like people didn't want to be sold to when they go on tour, right? No one wants to be sold to. You think about buying a new car and you instantly get womp, 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 right? You don't want to go because it's not fun. It's not impersonal. They're breathing down your throat. Like as soon as you step on the lot, like someone's there, like, do you want to buy a car? Come on, right? So what I did is, I'm sitting down, I'm taking you away from the leasing desk. We're getting to know each other. There's some awkward transaction in multifamily, right? So if you ask for the ID, that's an awkward transaction to me. We just kind of broke that friendly sales cycle that we're in by saying, can I have your ID? So I had to make a joke of it. And for those of you listening who know me, you know that in general, I'm a jokester, right? I like to have fun. So when I take the ID, I'm like, great, do you mind if I just have your ID just in case you decide to kidnap me? My coworker will kind of know who to go looking for. Hopefully they'll go looking for me. But let me tell you, in about 2 hours, I'm going to be hungry and I'm going to want Starbucks. And I have an unhealthy Starbucks addiction. So that's going to cost a lot of money and you'll probably be bringing me back. Everyone chuckles. It breaks the ice. Okay, so now we're having fun. Then the second transaction that's awkward for me is going to get in the golf cart. I had to think about it because I don't call it a golf cart. I'm like, great, come take a ride in my limousine. It makes it laugh, right? So when we get into the limousine, I'm like, now, please keep all body parts inside of the limousine here, as I haven't hurt anyone this month, and I don't want you to be the first. Because again, getting on a golf cart, you don't know how the person drives. It's super awkward. You don't know where to sit, all of that, right? So I just want it to be fun for these people. So instantly, like that breaks the ice and it makes the rest of my touring so much easier. So that's kind of how I, start the sales process with people. So the first would be a super competitive, the follow up and that interaction. And then the third piece is when I'm training a team member, it becomes more along the lines of like, not so much, how is the tour? Like there's an accountability, right? And I feel like property managers, assistant managers, everyone's busy. And we kind of forget about leasing. Like it's kind of like an afterthought sometimes. So for me, it's like, how was that tour? Why didn't that person apply? Oh, they had this objection. Let me tell you how I would word it. Or, oh, that's what's causing them not to apply. Let's give them a call and like, why don't we kind of sell it to them this way. And if that didn't work, then the next day when we came in, we talked about the tours the day before, so and so toured. Have you heard from them? Have you reached out to them? What's the plan for the follow up today? So they knew that I was continuously aware of what was going on, which held them accountable, right? It also let me know that, oh, I've seen you go out on tour 5 different times today, but I only see one tour entered in the system. So now it added a layer of accountability. And people are afraid of the word accountability these days. I've learned this recently. You know, you say accountability, and someone says, I don't need to be micromanaged. Two totally different things, right? And so we have to bust that myth that, accountability is not micromanaging. Accountability is just checking in and see where you are in the process and letting you know, hey, I have eyes on it. I'm here to help you. Like, if you need me to do a second close, call me up. All for it. I will reach out to the person. I will get them back in the door. We will get this lease signed. That's all it took. And, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the series, is that I was coming to train just the leasing agents, and I was working with them one-on-one, just like someone goes trains a manager, right? But not often does someone go train a leasing professional. And now they felt empowered that the company cared. It also set the stage that learning at the company was an expectation. It wasn't something that we just threw onto our website and said, oh, we value learning. No, we are providing that to you. And they had a resource. So I think kind of that's the secret sauce, right? That's the perfect mix of it. So that's kind of like leasing in a nutshell from my perspective. Now, what I always tell people is that leasing is not a science. And I think people want it to be a science, right? It's like, let me look at this piece and this piece. And if I do both of these pieces exactly the same every single time, it's going to work every single time. Unfortunately, that's not how leasing works. Leasing is an art. And I think people kind of forget that. And if you know anything about art is subjective, right? What is good to me is not going to be good to the next person. So, you're going to kind of make your own art in leasing. You're going to listen to things that I say. You're going to listen to things that your manager says. You're going to listen to things that your coworkers say. Maybe you shop your competitors. You're going to take some things away from there, and you're going to put it all together, and you're going to create your perfect leasing package. What I can tell you about leasing is that the further you dig into what they're looking for and the further you get to know the person, the easier it is to get them to come live with you. It's as simple as that. You make a friend, you make a sell. Wow, guys, I went off on a tangent there, but I hope you had one little nugget. And let me tell you, I'm just one person, but I know a lot of people. And I have a lot of ideas for people who are coming on to Rooms with Ronald and being a guest spotlight. And we're going to talk all things leasing. We're going to talk all things marketing. But further yet, I want you to be a part of the process. So if you have someone who you think would be perfect to come on and talk with me all things leasing and marketing, please reach out. Let me know. So here's where you can find me. You can send me an email at roomswithronald@gmail.com. That's roomswithronald@gmail.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. For some of you, I am super active on LinkedIn. That's Ronald Harrington on LinkedIn. Again, it will be all posted to the Multifamily Media Network website where how to find me. So reach out, tell me who you think you should come on and speak with me. The second thing that I want to do is I want to hear what problems you're facing right now. What's going on in your leasing? Maybe you have an apartment that you just can't lease, or maybe you get the same objection day in and day out. And how can we make that better? submit those as well. I'm going to have a Google form linked on our website as well. So you can go onto that form and you can submit that for me. And we'll talk about it right here on the podcast Rooms with Ronald. All of this is to make this as beneficial as possible. Now, we have come to the end of the very first Rooms with Ronald podcast. I am so excited to have taken this dive with you today. Don't forget to go to the bottom of the screen, go to wherever you listen to your podcast, and subscribe, like, tell all of your friends to come listen. Until next time, I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank the Multifamily Media Network for trusting me with this leasing and marketing podcast. And I want to thank the followers of Rooms with Ronald. Without you, we would not be here today. So until next time, happy leasing.